in. Our new panelists are moving in. We've had a small change. Gianna de Carter is feeling a little under the weather. So in her place to moderate this panel on conventional industries, shifting to food, pharma, and consumerism, the one and only, the head of Loose Brands, Toronto, Canada's favorite Torontonian. Is it Torontonian? Toronian?
That's right. That doesn't play for the Maple Leafs.
That doesn't play Canada's favorite non-Maple Leaf Torontonian. Let's hear it for Alex Revich.
What's up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. I know after the after party it's always a little tough, but hopefully everyone had their coffee and they're ready to rock. It's a very interesting panel. I'm very excited to be able to jump in and talk to these great people. I mean, I know some of them and got a chance to meet some new people, which I always love. And this topic is a very interesting one. We're going to be talking about, conventional industries and like the shift from food, pharma, and consumerism, because we've had so much changes in it. I think we're going to find it very interesting, especially with this great panel that I have up here. And I'll let them introduce themselves. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll jump right into it. So why don't we kick it off right here?
No problem. Good morning, everyone. My name's Paul Long, CEO of Little Green Pharma. So we are a medical cannabis company based in Australia and in Europe. We sit across the entire supply chain. So we provide medical products into, as I said, the Australian market. We're one of the larger brands in that market, and we've been pretty active in the European market for the last 4 or 5 years, and we have a big site up in Denmark that we're producing. The topic of commoditisation, I think we're going to touch on today. I think it's very interesting for us as a company, very interesting here in Germany, but also in Australia, and I think for everyone in the audience, understanding what that means and how that will play out in a market that's legalising is going to be an interesting topic.
Very great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bernie Young. I'm the CEO of Atlas Global Brands. We're based out of Canada, where we have an EU GMP hub based out of Chatham, Ontario, as well as a second facility in Stratford, Ontario, where we sell EU GMP flower, extracts, vapes, etc. And I've been in the space for 7+ years, and I'm very lucky to be with this panel as we look at the opportunities and take some learnings on what's changed over these several years, and especially us all being here in Germany as well as in all the international markets, how we continue to see trends and a lot of the growth and the opportunities. So looking forward to speaking more on that. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Susanne Kasper. I'm the CEO of Linnea. We are extractor of plant-based APIs. We are not a startup like a lot of companies here in this room. We are in the market for more than 40 years, and we are producing APIs. And in 2014, we decided to go as well the route for the cannabinoids. So we are producing now CBD, CBG, and THC as isolate and extracts. This
cool.
is my start.
Ben?
Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Patok. I'm not the CEO of Boveda, so I don't fit in that panel. Maybe I have to ask for a promotion after this. But Boveda, or Boveda, or Boveda in Germany, we're a producer of these little brown humidification pouches. If you don't know them, find us at our booth. You can have samples. Hopefully, we can change your life to the better. If you don't know it, so it's a two-way humidification you can put into any closed container. It will regulate the relative humidity to an exact level, regardless of the surrounding conditions. We do this for 25 years too, so we're not a startup either, and we do this in a multitude of industries. We started in tobacco industry. Cannabis today is our biggest industry, the most fun one too. But we also, we sell to people who breed alligators, and we sold some to the UN who ship larvae, eggs to Africa. Everything that needs to be stored at exact humidity conditions. That's what we do. Happy to be on this panel.
Yeah, and I definitely use those packages to keep my cannabis fresh back in Canada. And my name is Alex Revich. I've been helping start this ICBC in 2017. It's amazing how far this has come. And back home, my day job when I'm not helping organize ICBC and moderating panels, I have a company called Loose Brands where we make edibles, a contract manufacturer of edibles, and I have a pharmacy called Hybrid Farm that does medical cannabis. So very nice to be here with you all. Quick round of applause for our panel. Thank you. Awesome. So We're going to start, we're talking backstage with Paul about the background of this topic and why it's so important. Why don't we kind of start it off, and each one of us will talk about why this is such an important topic and why these people should care about it.
Yeah, sure. I think there's some interesting parallels when we look at the Australian market, which is our core market, to the German market. And I think in Australia we've now got 700 flower products in the market, so heavily commoditised market at the moment. In the last 12 weeks, we had 58 new products, so in the high THC category in the last 12 weeks in the Australian market. So I was thinking and hoping that we may have hit an inflection point last year, but it seems that's not the case in our home market. And when I talk to our partners here in Germany, we're hearing exactly the same thing. So by definition of commoditisation, we're going from high value, high quality products, or more niche products into generics, really, if we're talking in pharma land. And I think we accept as a company that's the markets that we're playing in. It's not the markets we see across the globe, across the markets we work in say France and Poland as an example. But certainly when we look at Germany and Australia, the theory of commoditisation is prevalent. For us, it's got positive and negatives. Like on a positive sense, we can see in Australia there's been a real shift to accessibility. And when we spoke about medical cannabis in Australia 5 or 6 years ago, the problem, it was patient advocates saying that we need access and it's too expensive. But now we can see that trend really, really shifting. So the cost for a patient has now dropped significantly. And in our market, we're dealing with patients, and it's a last resort for people with chronic health needs. And those patients often cannot work full time. So, there's a real positive behind the commoditisation. And I think we're also seeing a shift from the black market in Australia. There's a survey that's run in Australia every 4 years that looks at, it asks some interesting questions around drug use in a very de-identified way to Australian public. And in 2019, they asked the question, they said, for those people that are using cannabis illicitly, what percentage of those patients, so patients using illicit cannabis for a medical reason, what percentage of those patients actually got a script through our medical framework? And it was 1.8% in 2019. And in 2023, just the back half of last year, it's up to 22%. So on another positive frame, we're shifting away from the black market to the legal market. I think commoditisation has driven prices down, which means that less black market activity, more medical activity. And I think ultimately in Australia it'll be no different to Germany. There'll be a shift from commoditisation, lower priced product, legalisation. My personal opinion is that's where we're heading, and very similar parallels to what we're seeing here in Germany for sure.
Yeah, I could jump right in, because if you look at the flower price in Germany, there are now websites where you can check flower price in pharmacies for the same strains, and the entry point is as low as €3 for a gram of flower, right? And I talked to many, because we work with many of the importers, some of the producers as well, and they really see also a spike just in all the new stuff that's coming in, right? So the proportion of products that they bring in that needs to be, everybody in the beginning was like, oh, we need stable cultivars, stable. It's not so much that thing, because they really see new stuff coming in, big sales, and then it kind of fades out. Next thing comes in, new sales. So that's a consumer model market, even though we're in the medical field, technically speaking.
Ben, you know what? That's a great point. So Atlas Global Brands, we export to 7 international markets, and it's exactly that, Ben. Like you said, there's so much changes, but again, me coming from CPG and Jack Daniels and Dr. Pepper, it comes down to portfolio management. So there is commoditization, but I think at the end of the day, how do you differentiate yourself, right? And you create the brand positioning. It's all the fundamentals as we look at it to really create a differentiation. So for example, at Atlas, we have a nursery program, and we pheno hunt, and we make sure we have the best genetics, so that on sites like that, our partners, we're here in Germany, and one of our partners, like Anua, as an example, you partner with them and you create a compelling proposition where it's the only unique cultivar, and it's not a me too. The moment you have a me too, it's commoditized. Everyone's going to have it. You're driven on price. So how do you create a positioning with your brand, whether medical or consumer? Let's face it, it's cannabis. There's a market in for it. There's something that everyone's looking for. So that's really an evolving space that we'll see here.
I would like to highlight that this market is not only a flower market. You're only speaking about flower,
Good point.
but we are speaking about patients. We are speaking about medical market, and there are a lot of people who don't want to smoke. And therefore, I think we should see the market as well, that there are extract, that there are isolate, that there are maybe finished products at the end in the future, and this is very important. For me, it's important, the plant. The plant, for me, is so powerful. I really believe we have a lot of indication where we don't have any chance to find a product so far, and I believe that cannabis is the plant who can deliver new medication for new indication. And we are working together with the universities and together with our clients, we are doing clinical studies, and I really hope for the future for patients who will have this plant will be so powerful.
So Suzanne, what's your view on that? Because, let's talk about the future, because I think a lot of us have a lot of thoughts around, the cannabis health products. When I think of, topical rubs like the A535s of the world, you think of, even years ago, the big tobacco and pharma. This is a very important input. And I think there's a lot of, to your point, different ways to utilize a product beyond combustibles.
Yeah, I think the market will change a little bit in future. So I think there was yesterday as well a discussion. I think in future there will be maybe big pharma, I don't know. I know big tobacco companies are looking as well into this field. They will develop finished products with clinical studies, and then a lot of products can no longer be prescribed in the medical market, because then there are finished product, and as soon as there are finished product registered by the local authorities, then the market will change completely. And I think we are going into this direction with this, and this maybe you said positive, negative, and with this law change, maybe in Germany, it's maybe easier to get access to the medical market in that way, that companies will think about, okay, now maybe I invest because it's no longer a drug product, I'm no longer in this corner, which is more cannabis, it's not so positive. Now I have the impression that more companies are thinking about to develop a product. And this can take 5 more years, because in this market you always need to do clinical trials and get a registration, but it will come, and then the market will change totally.
Yeah, no, I double that. So at the end, if we're really honest, right now, we're using cannabis flower in a medicinal context for the lack of better alternative. So we give them like all of the 500 biochemical compounds that are in there, because we don't know which 5, 25, 135 you need for your specific case, right? But at some point we were able to decipher that, and this will be made into an application at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to, Bernie, understand your perspective on commoditisation, legalisation, and what happened next in your market. But I think what we see both here in Germany and Australia is, in some ways, the negative side is actually quite disappointing, because there is a conversation around flower, and it's high THC flower. And it's not the doctor, it's not the companies like ours making those decisions. It's the patient walking in to the doctor with a 7-minute telehealth consult, even less maybe, saying, I want this high THC flower. So we're reacting.
€1 now?
We're reacting, and the market's reacting, and it's responding to what the market wants. And that is an inevitable step from commoditisation, legalisation, and that's the way the market's heading. And yeah, there's definitely some negatives to that. We're not, as an industry, we're not doubling down and investing on unique drug delivery. We're not looking at new formulations. We're reacting to a market, and we're all in a really difficult capital market. That might be a little bit different over here. Maybe there's a bit of optimism around, the changes that we've seen and some capital available, but not in our world. Probably limited in your part of the world too. So you're reacting to the market, chasing revenue quarter by quarter, chasing profitability as a business. So inevitably the downside is that there is a lack of innovation for real patients with real products solutions, unfortunately.
That's an interesting point, Paul, because I think, that's where we have to all really collaborate. And I think this is that time where, we got to take learnings from Canada and other markets where, we've made mistakes and take those best practices and adapt them over. Like when you think about the product portfolio, you're right. Everyone's chasing quarter to quarter. You're trying to find sustainability, run a lean organization. But I think at the end of the day, when we think of what we all do together and the shift towards pharma and consumerism is, I come back to even at Atlas, it's like, what are we great at, right? And all of us have to find our lane that we want to own. And, in our case, it's really being a hub and exporting EU GMP for our partners in these types of markets. And that, I think, is key. But when you want to try to do everything, you end up not really being an expert. And that's where I think the value chain breaks down. And I encourage you all to think about that because, whether it's in the conversations we're having today around, consumerism and pharma and medical, it's just think about those key pieces because the commoditization is happening. So let's make sure whatever lane you pick, you're very, very efficient at it and productive at it.
I would like to come back to what Benjamin just said. Here in Germany now there are trends, and I think this is maybe a lesson we haven't learned here in Germany. There are trends that you can get now a prescription for €1. And they are doing advertising with a rapper in a pharmaceutical company. I'm happy to smoke, I'm happy to smoke. I really think this is too much. We had a long fight. I have seen what was going on in Germany. There was a long fight and there are parties, they don't like this law. And they directly say within votation next year, we will bring everything back to the status as today. And with these advertisement, I think this is not helping the market. So I really have the fear that now maybe politicians say, no, this is not what we want for Germany, or that pharma insurance companies maybe say, if this is the market, we will no longer pay for the products.
We actually saw that in the U.S. And what happens is if you kind of make medical a joke, kind of with your dollar joint, dollar gram, what happens is when recreational will happen, eventually you'll start to see recreational people go to recreational and the medical people will actually be professional and medical. And until you have legalization, unfortunately, this is what's going to happen. We saw that in the U.S., we saw that in Canada. And something else we're seeing in Canada, what you said about people just want to, how high can I get for the cheapest price, was a very common thing we saw in Canada. And Paul, you were talking about like all these new products. In Ontario, my province, we have 3,000 products in the market and they're talking about increasing it to 5,000. Bernie's nodding his head. He knows how difficult the Canadian market is with so many different products, but at least we're diversifying from flower. And I always say that when the prices come down and the access increases, that's when you'll get rid of the black market. You can't get rid of the black market by policing. No matter how much you try, it won't go away. The only way it'll go away is by giving the people what they want at the right price and in an easy way. And with that in mind, and bringing the price down, it becomes a commodity. And that's a very important topic that we're talking about here. Sorry, Susan, before we get into our next topic, you wanted to say something. Yeah,
I want, yes, you are discussing price, but what we can see is that the products in the market, the quality is very low. So you see, especially flowers, but as well in our area, the extract area, the product, the quality is so low that let's say we know there are products in the market, let's say CBD 5%. If we analyze this, there is no CBD inside. There is a THC above the level, so there are products.
They're false labeling.
Totally really? False, and because nobody is controlling the market so far, and as well for flowers, the flowers are sometimes really bad quality, and so pricing is one thing, but if you want to get good quality, price sometimes needs to be as well.
I think it's the price value relationship, like you said, right? But I would say, I give credit to the EU here, and Australia's, it wasn't like Canada where it was like grow it and sell it and it's going to move in the beginning. When we had legalization, I find the product quality curve is shot up exponentially, and I'm sure you agree as well here. You're right on some of the quality dumping and commoditization that's shifting some of the products, but I mean, patients are smart. And, we're all consumers, and you buy it once. If it doesn't meet your price-value relationship, you're not going to deliver. That's why it comes back to consistency and quality of what you want to deliver and own and be great at, and just consistently do it.
And you'll tell your friends about that it's not good, and that's word of mouth is very valuable. Ben, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, but that's a consumer mechanism, right? Because if you think of, if it was a pharmaceutical product, the quality would be the effect that it has on your back pain, And I think the issue is also because right now in medicinal, we only look at THC, CBD. There's the only two active compounds that we really care about, and we don't know about the rest yet, right? So this is, I think, one of the issues. And all the mechanisms, we say this is a consumer market mechanisms, right? Because at the end is, well, if I get a medicine, then it's what's the quality of a medicine? Does it help me or not? It's not about how does it taste, and all this. I mean, of course, there is the adherence part of it, of course. If it's too bitter, your cough syrup is too bitter, you won't take it. It's bad for you, okay? That's there. But the rest of it is just pure out between the strains, the cultivars. I exchange it because I like the flavor better, A lot of it has to do with humidity, actually, too. So we have a study of 1,100 data points, and the legal limit was 10% moisture content. The average was 7, somewhere in that 4, and that's really low. It's dry. That's obviously bad, But at the end, it will be interesting to see how that then translates into legalized market. I agree with you, Alex. I mean, that's how you get. That's right now that you see a rush into the medicinal because of the lack of a recreational alternative, right? That's what it is.
See that for sure. Paul, last stop before we get into our next topic.
Yeah, I actually just have a question, probably Bernie and Alex, for you guys that I'm interested in, that I think other people in the audience might, around beyond, step beyond commoditization, legalization, and are there some good examples out there in US and Canada that you would guide, companies like ours or startups or whatever that looks like in Australia and Germany?
Example, I don't know, Bernie, good example.
What I say to everyone is you can never, whether it's medical and cannabis is in medical spaces, you can never trick the consumer or the patient. You know what I mean? Deliver on what you want to have. And I think there's been, in our space, even in the early time, is you think, hey, just get it out the door. And it's just the consistency, the quality, the price-value relationship. Many of you highlight the humidity and quality of the product. All of this stuff kind of comes in handy. I always use the analogy of the 5 senses with cannabis, right? It's, you open it and you see it and you touch it, you smell it, you taste it. It ultimately evolves. And I think the key learnings is just what you put in the bag. Is if you were to buy any product off that market, would you be proud of its consistency? And I think it comes down to that for sure.
The question is if the consumer or patient always see the quality. Sometimes maybe they think, oh, it could help for this disease or for this pain, or I don't know, and oh, it doesn't help, so no, cannabis is not good, and I will tell this to my colleagues. So it can really reduce the market, because if the quality is not there, if the product is not inside what they are selling, putting on the package, then this can ruin the full market, because then people are thinking, okay, this is nothing for me. But I think we have done a big step ahead in the European Union, because there was a creation of a monograph this year for the CBD isolator. And I think this is perfect for patients, for the quality, because now we have a monograph, and every product in this market, and every pharmacy who needs to formulate with the isolate of CBD now needs to follow this regulation, this specification, and this will be perfect. So a lot of products will need to get out of the market, and I think everybody who would like to think about, oh, I will develop a product and do stability data, they really now need to think about which product to start with. This need to comply to this monograph. This is, I think it's a step ahead, and I think this will follow, and this is not only good for Europe. I think as well. Other authorities will follow the example.
And it's going to really
Europe.
take it, doctors to take it seriously. I've been doing a lot of doctor education throughout my career, 10 years, and at the beginning they said, there's not enough information, there's not enough evidence, there is no monograph. Like I heard that all the time. So the fact that it does have it will really help in its credibility. And you were kind of asking the question, I think one of the big parts and the challenges around our industry is in the regulations, there's a lot of expenses in being a legal company, EU GMP, all these costs. With these costs require investment. Then you take investment on, and then the clock starts ticking of you got to start paying the back of that investment. So you're really rushing to try and be able to survive long enough until you can give the customers what they want and the patients what they want. And that's a big challenge. And that kind of goes into our next topic around the commoditization of this product. So there's good and bad with it. Yes, the patient might get a cheaper, more affordable product, but then how do we make our money back to pay back the investors? Because if the investors aren't interested, they're going to go put their money in something else, and then we can't even operate these businesses because it's so expensive to operate. So commodity, the good and the bad. I know, Paul, you had some thoughts on it, and some others as well backstage. Give the audience some pros and cons of what this looks like, commoditizing this product.
Yeah, I've probably touched on a few already, but one to add might be just you sort of touched on it around how business can operate in that space. And I think, with commoditisation, we've got, proliferation of brands and businesses and new startups every week by the sound of it. In the Australian example, it's very easy to bring a product and put a label on it. So it does make it incredibly difficult to operate. And it's a different layer of thinking for businesses. I mean, we as a company have started from a pure pharma perspective because we were that was the environment in which we operated, and we still continue to operate in that environment. But we've had to start to think more FMCG as an industry, as a company. But yeah, that's a different commercial proposition for us as a business and our strategy and our shareholders. So I think we're seeing, we probably haven't seen it too much over here, and there may be some different views, but certainly in Australia we're seeing companies not being able to operate in that space because it relies on volume, it relies on margin, it relies on branding, it relies on obviously good quality product to the patient. So yeah, on the negative side, it's difficult to operate in that space. But we all in this industry should think what's right for the patient, and ultimately I still think on the balance of positive and negative that there's some real positives behind access for patients and affordability for patients. So overall, I think that we're trending in the right direction. I do hope that there's a future where there's a bit of a carve out for in our part of the world. There's legalisation that medical continues to have a space, because I think that the medical part and what we were previously delivering and thinking about was producing unique products and drugs, thinking about drug registration, thinking about solving real patient problems, and it's a different strategic thinking in a boardroom when you look at both of those. So I do hope that there's a future world that there is a split between legalised pathway, medical pathway, and that the medical pathway has the right investment to invest in research and development and really focus on those.
That's a good point. They're very different. Medical is one side, very pharma, and then there's CPG, which is very different, something that Bernie knows a lot about, the very different worlds for sure. Some other thoughts on the good and bad of commoditizing it?
So, because, we have, our product is a commodity. Do you know what our biggest competitor is in the cannabis space? It's actually people using nothing, right? They just like dry weed sucks. That's it. They still smoke it, And in other places in the cigar space where we originate from 25 years, our biggest competitor is basically a sponge, right? So it's a highly commoditized business. So, but at the end of the day and that's like for every consumer market you have to build your selling proposition, right? And your brand in order to convince people that you have the right solution for what they need. And we are the most expensive solution in the market, but we are also the best solution in the market when it comes to delivering on point. And it's IP protected, so everybody else we created this product industry, really, and we've seen in the last 25 years a lot of Me Too products. They're here at the show as well. But in the last 25 years, we've seen a lot of them come and go. Yeah. So it's for us, and it's interesting to see. And then my question would be for you guys: how easy would it be for you to like pivot? You know, because flower could be a recreational product. Yeah. So how easy would it for you to pivot? For you, it would be a little bit more difficult. You know, but then, so in theory, there's a way, right? Either in each industry for you guys at the end.
I mean, I find the biggest change, and if you think about Canada, we were medical first, and then we shifted to Canadian legalization. But, excuse me, I think the thing that we got to think about is there's the rapid growth of the macro industry. The behaviors of our patients and what they expect and what they want from cannabis has always been there. Like, you got to remember, we're creating some products, but we're also converting the illicit market over to medical for consistency and quality of product. And that's kind of the thing when I think about brands, and whether it's on the medical side, like, yes, you've got the traditional pharma, the API, you know, the Apotexes when we're in Canada and whatnot, and other large ones. But really, the key thing that I see here is you can still brand and you can still create a brand affinity. And what does that product deliver? And I think consumers in the medical space and patients, they'll continue to do that and have expectations. So again, it's portfolio building. It's understanding how each one of the pieces segment to your actual patient, I think, are very, very important. And yes, a lot of it's from FMCG, but you know, even in a lot of the partners I've worked with in the past in the pharma side is like, what's the solution you're delivering? What's the need state you're meeting? And if you nail that every single time, you're going to have a patient base. And yes, there's commoditization and on Me Too, but it's those that are going to be able to balance the volume, the quality, the price-value relationship, and ultimately that product that the consumer and patient wants is going to win every time.
And Susan, I know you have an interesting perspective here, because actually this commoditization might actually be a benefit for you, because you have a product that creates standardization and quality, and it doesn't require growing maybe with the same type of cost. So maybe this commoditization could be good. And by the way, think about some questions from the audience. So Susan will give her answer, and then if anyone has any questions, we'll take them there. Go ahead, Susan.
I would like to come back to your question. People need to earn money, and maybe investors are no longer willing to spend their money. And I have the feeling the industry is changing now. A lot of companies start to leave the market. I believe there will be more companies leaving the market, and quality and what we said, standardization. It's not cheap. So you really need to have the money to do stability data. We have stability data for 5 years, but this is an investment of hundreds of thousands of euro. And I believe a lot of companies will leave the market, and therefore there will be. If you really think to start to do something in the long run, you need to see which company will be in the market in the future.
Yeah, and we saw that in Canada. So many companies started, and now every year we have more companies leaving than joining. So that's something that we're seeing. And one of the big things around commoditization is the marketing restrictions really make it difficult for us to differentiate ourselves from everyone else. So how do you kind of separate? Plus, customers only really understand THC. So we have to really create a more knowledgeable customer and allow for some education around products, not marketing. Obviously, advertising is not going to be allowed ever, but finding other ways to educate people on why your product is better. And I think that's going to be a way to differentiate yourself. And I don't know, if, Ben, you look like you have a thought there.
Just to finish that, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, the good thing about commoditization is the consumer has now a choice. And if that choice is, I want to sacrifice quality over price, that's the choice. And the challenge is, of course, as you said, where do you fit in all that entire spectrum that is? How do you make yourself stand out and explain, right, education, why your product is worth what you ask for?
Otherwise, you're just a commodity, and then you're compared equally to everyone else, and then people want to know what's the best price on that commodity. Any questions from the audience? I have a few other questions here for the panel, but wanted to open it up if anyone has any questions first. I see one right there. Don't be shy. We've got a good group up here.
Hello. Look, I'm from Russia, Yuri, and I plant hemp. Before in Russia, hemp used only for fiber and for seeds. Now I find out that CBD is very popular in the whole world. and a lot of advantage we are talking about CBD here. THC I don't touch at all. So, and if anybody think how CBD destroys the body in future, how it's, nobody talk about disadvantage of CBD. If any disadvantage that you are declare.
Are you saying that you've heard there's some disadvantages of CBD?
Yes.
So, I mean, I can speak to one. In my pharmacy, we do med checks there, and we found that certain blood thinners, if you take CBD, it makes the blood thinner less effective. So I always tell people, we don't really say that CBD is completely safe. It does have some negative things, especially for people on certain medications. And also, the other negative with CBD is what carrier oil it's mixed with. Some people with like MCT oil or coconut oil can cause like diarrhea, so it makes like stomach upset, but that's not the CBD, that's more the carrier oil. I don't know if anyone else on the panel has any kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would, so for me, you see this is not commodity. So for me, it's a product that works like any other pharmaceutical ingredient, but it's a pharmaceutical. For me, it's a pharmaceutical ingredient. And if I take something, sometimes you have as well some negative output. But I need to say our products we are delivering to Brazil, and in Brazil the CBD is given to children with epilepsy, and it works so good, so so effective, so that maybe this is not, oh, I like to have this only to feel a little bit better, but you should see it like a product that really works, that really helps, but maybe you should not take it only for fun. And then you need then
not fun. Nothing fun about CBD. It's real medicine. Actually, maybe one negative I want to say about CBD that's very bothering me is in the U.S. and other places how it's like a novelty. I go to the U.S. and they put it in hamburgers and tampons, and they're putting CBD in everything, and it's become more of like a novelty than a real medical product, and that really bothers me. And that's probably the biggest negative of CBD is because it's legal in these jurisdictions. People have kind of put them in funny shaped gummies and, oh, buy your CBD flower. And it's like, no, this is not what it's for. Smoking CBD is probably literally the worst way of getting your CBD. So.
And just one more to add from my perspective, we've supplied, I think, over 70,000 units of our CBD 50 oil in an MCT carrier to the French pilot study, and under that study we're measuring pharmacovigilance. We have to do that through the French regime, and there was no serious, over that 3-year period, there was no serious incidents, but there's quite a few on record of minor incidents, which I think Alex has mentioned. So diarrhea, vomiting, but again, often linked to the carrier oil, but nothing major that we've seen in that market.
No, good question. Thank you. And yeah, very interested to see what's happening in Russia. I don't hear too much about it, but I love seeing new countries come to ICBC. And hey, you're the first Russian I meet here at ICBC. Hopefully we'll have a chance to chat. I'd love to learn more. Any other questions right here?
I have a question for Bernie. You briefly mentioned working before for brands like Jack Daniels and Dr. Pepper, and there's a lot of similarities between that and the cannabis industry. What would you say are the biggest difference between those kinds of brands and products and the cannabis industry?
I think we definitely, and that's a great question, we definitely forget how long it takes to build a brand and trust with patients and consumers. Like, I think Jack Daniel's now, 160, 170 years now, right? It's synonymous with whiskey. I mean, it's very challenging, I find, building brands in this time. That's why it's really the step-by-step, and Alex mentioned it too, around, you upset one consumer, the ripple effect of Reddit and all of that, it's the implication. So that's kind of why when we all look together, it's changed so much. I've been in the space now for 7+ years, and what I say now is we need to find our partnerships. We need to be, real honest with each other and say, again, what are we great at? Let's work together and build and shape the industry now. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of, even here at the ICBC, when I talk to a lot of great people, it's just, how do we do this better, and how do we have a consistent global supply chain? We talk about CPG, like, let's talk about McDonald's, the French fry, whether it's here, Canada, China, wherever, it's the same, it's consistent. And I think that's what all of us want to get to, and we really just got to be thoughtful on that approach.
Hi, everybody. Great panel. My question relates to what consistent and successful consumer product regulation must offer to companies in order to make it work, because I think an impression that a lot of people in Germany have is that the market dynamic of bringing in new products that deflate rather quickly, and companies that have an ultra high cash burn rate who are who must make this kind of money to keep up with this circulation, but cannabis and or THC as an ingredient is the actual interesting thing, assuming it follows the same logic as tobacco, where we're getting away from tobacco products and more towards a nicotine-based regulation and different forms of consumption. That must be the goal, in my personal opinion, for cannabis to be successful in the long run and achieve high revenue per unit sales that are sustainable enough. How can regulators enable industry and set them up for success? And at some point, drawing from lessons from Canada, which probably don't need to be replicated in other parts of the world, to at the same time open a market, but also protect it from the dynamics that makes it eat itself or destroy itself in the long run.
I want to ask this panel, because that's an interesting question, because there's a theoretical view, right? And there's a practical view, and you said it too. Cash burn, managing your day-to-day operations and whatnot it's really finding the right mix of the portfolio, I find. Like, let's face it, in the next near term, you got to sell flower. Like, you can talk about the API, very important, and there's the medium and the long run development. But if you want to survive and sustain, like even in Canada today, you got, in a more mature market where there's 2.0 products, flower's just under 50% of all the volume still. Right?
Now it's pre-rolls.
And then plus pre-rolls on top with the 18%. So when you look at it, there's a lot of those pieces, but where I want to get to is really around the balance of, yes, there's a long-term and making sure we're all contributing as a group, shaping the space and making this a really long-term sustainable market on the global front. And I think there's a lot of pieces that we have to run, but that's probably a separate topic that can have a lot of dialogue. I'm interested in everyone's view, because you want to build it, but you got to keep the lights on, and you got to balance that, and that's a tricky balance for sure.
We can definitely talk about it for a while. I see Ngayo over here. It looks like maybe our time is
Our time is up.
Yeah.
Our panel was fantastic. Let's hear it again. Alex Revich,
And we're going to be outside.
Bernie Young, Suzanne Kaspar, and Benjamin Potok. Well, that was wonderful. That was fantastic. And I'm sure you can talk to them in the hallway if you'd like to talk to them some more.